Welcome to the comic book movie bracket on Movie Feuds. This is episode 3 and we got a lot of these to go. But today we're focused on X-Men and we're going to decide together which one earns the right to move on to the Phase 2 bracket down the road. I think it's going to be the
Stop!
What is happening?
Stop everything, Adam. There is a war coming if you continue this feud. A rift will take place between those that prefer the original cast to the new toddler version.
You're me from the future? My God, you look gorgeous still. You haven't aged a day. You're still wearing the same clothes and have the same crappy hairstyle, as a matter of fact. Almost like this show has no budget.
We don't have time for banter. You must put an end to this madness before it's too late.
X2 or Days of Future Past is gonna win anyway, so who cares? I'm not worried.
No, you have it all wrong. X-Men Origins Wolverine wins. We don't know how it happened, but it did.
No, that can't be. That cannot happen.
It be.
No! I don't want your suffering! I don't want your future!
Then do the right thing.
Sometimes in order to do the right thing,
You need to do the wrong one first.
I don't know what that means.
Feud on.
Very well.
It begins. We should all be very familiar with the cast by now. Some of these guys haven't changed since day one, such as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Others have changed in more ways than one, like Mystique, originally played much better, might I add, by Rebecca Romijn. Nightcrawler was a fan favorite in X2, played by Alan Cumming. He too was replaced for a younger actor in later installments with less screen time and presence. Oscar winner Halle Berry can't decide if Storm should have an accent in the original film. By X3 and Days, she fits more comfortably into her role. Her young incarnation in Apocalypse certainly looked the part, but once more has very little screen time. The same can be said for the majority of the characters here. Cyclops, Angel, Psylocke, criminally underutilized. I think X2 and Days of Future Past juggled the cast the best, giving breakouts like Quicksilver their chance to shine, but also giving us small fun cameos by Colossus and Bishop. X1 is impressive mainly because it built up so many relationships and arcs in such a small amount of time. First Class was able to recreate that idea to a lesser extent, including some really dumb additions like Firefly Chick and Banshee, who is just the worst. That's not a superhero power, that's what a little baby does, and it's annoying. I know he was a real X-Men, but he was never cool. Rose Byrne in lingerie and Emma Frost, I suppose, balance things out. The Wolverine movies can't be forgotten, as much as I would like them to be. In a casting move that rivals that of Rihanna in Battleship, will.i.am plays Wraith. The Blob has a small role, or large, I should say. Kill me. Sabretooth gets a classier upgrade to actor Liev Schreiber from the pro wrestling incarnation X1 gave us. Jesus, these characters change actors a lot. What a fucking mess. That's right, this episode of Movie Feuds is rated PG-13, which means I get to use one F-word, just like the last 3 X-Men movies did. So edgy. So edgy. X3 ruins a lot of things, there's no question about that, but one thing it did get right was Kelsey Grammer as Beast. Magneto and Xavier have always been at the heart of these films. Stewart, McKellen, Fassbender, and McAvoy deliver every time. There's plenty more to talk about in the cast department, but I'm already spent and we still have 2 rounds to go. Let's move this along. Trying to make sense of the X-Men timeline is like trying to make sense of yellow starbursts. I understand there's people out there that get what it's doing, but the majority of people understand that it's bullshit, and it needs to be reworked from the ground up. When the first film hit and I saw some of my favorite X-Men on the big screen, I was a happy camper. It wasn't an amazing film, and some creative liberties were taken. Regardless, I think Singer did a damn fine job with the small budget and new frontier he was given. Then X2 came along and blew almost everyone away, much like Spider-Man 2 did. We get a further dive into Xavier and Magneto's fractured relationship. We learn of Wolverine's history with Stryker. There's smaller moments with Pyro and Iceman. Then we get the brilliant buildup of the Phoenix saga with Jean sacrificing her life in the final moments of the film. It's an emotional and impactful moment that rocks you to your very core, that proves to be fruitless
when X3, that piece of shit travesty, comes along and ruins everything that was built before it. This disaster is the result of 3 director swaps, actor demands, and ultimately a studio's refusal to wait for their lead director to return. What we're left with is a convoluted mess of plots that never get fully realized. I was pissed for weeks after I left the theater. I was yelling at complete strangers on the road at how bad this movie was. I was thrown in jail for 3 weeks because of it. That's a lie. I didn't yell at anybody. It was insulting to comic book fans, it was insulting to the audience, and most importantly, most harshly, it was insulting to Jean Grey herself, my beautiful blushing bride. My beautiful famke. Just when you think it can't get any worse, here comes X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was filmed as a bro action vehicle instead of the smarter beats we're used to. Things were looking pretty grim for the old X-Men, but then Dat Matthew Vaughn came along, gave it a swift kick in the dick that it desperately needed. He knocked it down a peg, scaled it back, focused on characters more than spectacle, and smartly based it around the Cold War. Singer comes back into the fold and makes a damn fine picture with Days of Future Past. It does a lot right. Retcons the events of X3, creates this cool timeline between the old and the new actors, brings out great performances from most of the cast, and sets up this interesting timeline. Don't worry, he makes sure fans understand we can't have nice things for too long, releases Apocalypse. This movie is arguably a little better than X3. Apocalypse assembles an army of 4 horsemen who neither ride horses nor are men, and appears his criteria is just whoever he happens to bump into first on the street. The X-Men technically aren't even formed yet, so it's a crew of ragtag kids banding together to fight. By the end of this second trilogy, we get our first glimpse of the team. I forgot to mention The Wolverine, most likely because it was entirely forgettable the moment I left the theater. Not a bad movie, but not a good one either. Just kinda there. Like that fake decorative tree my wife bought a few months back because she thought it'd look interesting in the corner of our living room. Spoiler, it doesn't. You know, these comic book bracket episodes were supposed to be fast, like 3 or 4 minutes, refresher course sort of things. Boom, boom, we're done, you vote, we move on. Yet here I am, far later than I wanted to be, and I'm still going. Jean Grey wisely once said that the 3rd installment of a franchise is always the worst. Well, you know what, Jean? Here we are on the 3rd episode of the bracket, and touche, you're right. Much like my sex life in college, I'm gonna make this round fast and joyless, because I want to get this over with. X1's effects are dated but not terrible. The Statue of Liberty stuff is very comic booky, and I'm okay with that. It's a hell of a lot more interesting than that circle jerk battle in the city block Apocalypse gave us. Then again, it had an amazing Quicksilver school sequence and a Wolverine breakout. X2 still has my favorite action with the White House opening, the mansion raid, the suburban escape, and the final fights. X3 has some cool moments too, such as a slow motion destruction shot by Mean Gene. I'm not entirely sure why all the bad mutants have frog jumping abilities, but that's the least of the film's problems. Origins has the worst effects of the bunch, with laughable CGI claws on Wolverine. Days of Future Past butcher the Sentinels, but the futuristic ones look pretty damn sweet. Iceman goes full ice mode, and Blink was a very fun addition. Quicksilver gets his first show-stopping scene, and Wolverine's left, unfortunately, with his dick in his hand for most of the movie due to his, dumbass bone claws. Though Wolverine has very little in terms of interesting moments, although Logan chilling with a bear to start things out was solid. The bullet train sequence was good too. The CGI Silver Samurai looked like something straight out of Transformers. First Class got creative with things, using kitchen utensils, barbed wire fences, an assortment of missiles, and whatever else Magneto finds lying around to kill people with. There is a mini school raid here too, done much less interesting, and I wasn't a big fan of Kevin Bacon's villain role as a mutant that is essentially a nuclear bomb. Did I cover them all? I don't care. Let's conclude. The board has been set. The pieces are in play. We have ourselves a chess match of epic proportions, and now it's your turn to determine who goes home with the crown. That metaphor got away from me. The biggest question here today, though, is what happens to a toad that is struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else. Stop doing that! More than just reviews. This is Movie Feuds. Honestly, you are just a specimen.
No, I know.
Breathtaking.